Alisa Martin walked into Dax Corp, her heart racing with excitement and fear. As an intern, she was eager to prove herself, but the whispers among her colleagues were deafening. "Did you hear about her? The CEO is actually paying attention to her," they murmured, their eyes filled with skepticism. Little did they know that beneath her ordinary appearance lay a fierce determination and untapped potential. When Alisa accidentally stumbled upon a critical mistake in a project that had everyone stumped, the room fell silent. The first day of an internship is always memorable, either because everything goes smoothly or because it turns into a complete disaster. For Alisa Martin, things were already going sideways before she even stepped into the Dax Corp building. First, the bus broke down. Then, the taxi driver took the wrong route. To top it all off, her heel got stuck in a grate right outside the entrance. Now running late and her hair a mess from battling the wind, Alisa dashed across the lobby toward the elevator, which was just about to close. "Wait, hold it!" she shouted as she sprinted like a rocket across the lobby. At the last moment, she squeezed through the elevator doors, but her momentum carried her straight into a tall man in a dark suit who was distracted by his phone. "Oh!" Alisa exclaimed, stumbling back. The man barely had time to react before letting out a pained grunt. Alisa had stepped hard on his foot. "Ouch, ouch, ouch," she exclaimed, quickly grabbing onto the elevator wall for support. The man, still in shock from the encounter, looked at his foot and then at Alisa with disbelief. "You stepped on me. It wasn't intentional." Alisa raised her hands defensively. "But if it makes you feel any better, my foot hurts too." Before he could respond, his phone, which had flown from his hand during the impact, hit the elevator floor with a loud thud. "Oh no." Alisa picked up the phone, praying it was still intact. The man snatched it back, shooting her a sharp glare. "Fantastic. Now my phone has also taken a solo flight." Alisa let out a nervous laugh. "At least it survived, right? Modern phones are pretty tough." He pressed a side button, and the screen flickered with a crack. Alisa held her breath. "Well, I guess your phone now has a unique design, custom made by Impact," she said, trying to lighten the mood. The man let out a deep sigh, rubbing his temples as he tried to regain his composure. Just then, the elevator jolted and came to an abrupt stop, the lights flickering into silence. Alisa swallowed hard. Is this part of the decor?" The man ignored her joke and impatiently pressed the emergency button. "The elevator stopped," he said, clearly trying to maintain his calm. Alisa's eyes widened. "Yeah, I noticed. My first day, and I'm already stuck in an elevator with a stranger. This has to be divine punishment for spilling coffee on my resume." The man shot her a suspicious look. "How does someone spill coffee on their own resume?" "Oh, it was an accident. But luckily, HR only read half of it before the ink smudged," Alisa explained with a grin. "What about you? How did you end up here?" He raised an eyebrow. "I took the elevator." She sighed dramatically. "Wow, really? I never would have guessed." The man looked up at the ceiling as if asking for patience from the heavens. "I work here." "Oh, so you must know the emergency exit protocol. What do we do now? Shout for help or send smoke signals?" Alisa quipped. "We wait," he replied dryly. Alisa crossed her arms. "That's boring." "No, we're in an elevator, not a comedy show." Her eyes widened with sudden excitement. "Speaking of which, do you like stand-up comedy?" The man looked at her as if she had just asked if he was an alien. "No." "Oh, that's a shame. I love it. There's this comedian who jokes about corporate meetings. He's brilliant. He says that bosses always say, 'Let's handle this over email,' but no one ever responds to emails. Have you ever ignored emails?" "You talk a lot." "I talk a lot when I'm nervous," Alisa admitted with a frown. "My brain sort of switches to AM radio mode and starts broadcasting every thought I have." He raised an eyebrow. "That's a problem." "I'd say it's an unrecognized talent," she replied with a smile. Finally, the intercom crackled to life, and a receptionist's voice echoed through the speaker. "Folks, we had a small malfunction. The elevator should be back up and running in about 5 minutes." "Great! The man leaned against the wall, looking impatient. Alisa sighed dramatically. 5 minutes is enough time to reflect on life. Tell me something. Have you ever done anything really embarrassing? He blinked at her. Why would I tell you that? Because we're stuck here, and according to the unofficial elevator code, when two people get trapped together, they have to share embarrassing secrets. I've never heard of that code. Of course not, because I just made it up. But the rule still stands. He stared at her, unable to believe they were having this conversation. All right, I'll play along. Alisa leaned in eagerly. Go on. When I was a kid, he began, crossing his arms, I fell into a hotel pool during a trip because I wanted to see if it was possible to walk on water. Alisa broke into a big smile. Oh my God, did you think you were Jesus? I thought I had read something about water surface tension and wanted to test it. That's incredible. Wrong, but incredible. Just then, the elevator gave a slight jolt before continuing its ascent. Alisa clapped excitedly. We're free. The man shook his head, looking relieved to be rid of her. When the doors opened on the 20th floor, he stepped out first, and Alisa followed right behind, adjusting her hair as if nothing had happened. At the reception desk, she was greeted by a smiling assistant. You must be the new intern. Mr. Fischer wants to speak with you before you start. Alisa froze. Mr. Fischer? The assistant pointed toward a glass office, and there he was, the man from the elevator, the CEO of the company, Ethan Fischer. Alisa held her breath. Oh well, now I'm definitely getting fired. She wanted to dig a hole and hide forever. If only the elevator had stayed stuck for another hour, or if lightning had struck at that exact moment, anything would have been better than walking into that man's office right after stepping on him, making him drop his phone, and forcing him to listen to her theories about elevator secrets. The CEO's assistant smiled. You can go in. He's expecting you. Expecting me to fire me, Alisa thought. She forced a smile and stepped inside. Ethan Fischer was seated behind a spotless desk, looking very different from the annoyed man in the elevator. His suit was still perfect, his hair neatly in place, and his serious expression unchanged. He looked up at her. Oh, you again. Alisa gave a nervous smile. The walking disaster in person. Ethan gestured for her to sit. Alisa Martin, right? She nodded, trying to maintain some dignity. Yes, sir. But if you need to pretend I never existed for the sake of your sanity, I completely understand. He ignored the comment. You've been approved for an internship in the project analysis department. That means handling reports, presentations, and meetings. Alisa nodded, hoping he wouldn't bring up the elevator incident. I was told you're proactive. She blinked. They said that? Is that good news? It depends. If proactive means you'll spill less coffee than the office average, then yes. She blushed. I solemnly swear to spill coffee no more than twice a week. Ethan didn't laugh. You'll be working under Melissa, the department manager. He looked directly at her, then trying not to start a fire. Alisa's eyes widened. That's happened before? No, but with you, one can never be too sure. She opened her mouth to protest, but quickly realized she had no defense. Fair enough. He gestured toward the door, signaling the end of the meeting. You can go, and please try not to step on anyone on your way out. Alisa hurried out of the office. She had done it. She hadn't been fired on her first day. That was already a victory. As soon as she arrived at the project analysis department, she realized she was already a bit of an office celebrity. The whispers were loud enough for her to hear. It's her, the intern who almost killed the CEO. I heard she threw his phone out the window. It's an exaggeration. It was just on the floor. She's looking. Melissa, the department manager, walked over. Welcome, Alisa. Alisa smiled politely. Thank you. I'm really excited to start. Melissa nodded, but seemed a little hesitant. I hope so. Just a heads up, our department is very structured. People here are extremely organized. Alisa smiled. Oh, of course. I'm super organized, too. At that exact moment, her bag slipped from her shoulder and knocked over a stack of documents from a colleague's desk. Papers scattered everywhere. The silence was deafening. Oh, Alisa mumbled. That was a test. Melissa sighed. I'll show you to your desk. She handed Alisa a folder. Here are some reports you need to organize and review. It's simple. Just put the documents in order, check the spreadsheets, and enter everything into the system. Sounds easy. Alisa grinned. Great. We need it done in 3 hours. Melissa walked away, leaving Alisa to her first task. She opened the folder and found dozens of pages filled with charts and complex tables. All right, I can do this, she said, taking a deep breath and starting to sort the papers. 5 minutes later, she thought to herself, I definitely cannot do this. The charts looked like ancient mystical runes, and the tables had more numbers than a rocket's instruction manual. But Alisa wasn't going to give up. I need a plan, she thought. So she had a brilliant idea. She grabbed some colorful sticky notes and started labeling spreadsheets with funny names to help her remember what each one was about. The depression spreadsheet because the numbers just kept dropping, and the sadness chart because it looked like a downward spiral. The bankruptcy tables were self-explanatory. Proud of her revolutionary system, she kept working. Alisa was so focused that she didn't even notice when Melissa walked back in. How's it going? Melissa asked. Alisa jumped in surprise and, in the process, knocked over her cup of coffee right onto the documents. Melissa's eyes widened. Alisa, I can explain. Alisa frantically grabbed napkins, but it was too late. The tables were completely smudged, and the whole office went silent. Oh my God, someone murmured. Melissa rubbed her temples. How much coffee do you drink per day? Not enough to handle this, Alisa replied with a sigh. Okay, reprint everything and redo the notes? Alisa sighed in relief. So I still have a job? Melissa paused. For now. After an entire afternoon fixing the disaster, Alisa finally finished her work. As she got up to deliver the documents to Melissa, she heard murmurs in the office. The CEO is coming. Ethan Fischer walked into the department like a king inspecting his kingdom. Everyone immediately straightened up. Alisa tried to look professional, but her nerves got the best of her, and she dropped the stack of documents right at Ethan's feet. He looked at the papers on the floor, then at Alisa, who gave him an awkward smile. Oh, hi again. Ethan took a deep breath. Do you have something against documents? She quickly crouched down to pick them up. No, I love documents. They're so rectangular. He raised an eyebrow. Rectangular? Yes, and printed very nicely. He looked at her, completely baffled. Good to know. He grabbed a report and flipped through it. These numbers. He paused, looking at one of her sticky notes. Why is this chart labeled the sadness chart? The office fell into absolute silence. Alisa felt her soul leave her body. I can explain. Ethan slowly closed the report. This better be a really good explanation. The entire room held its breath as Alisa's face turned hot. There he was, Ethan Fischer, the most intimidating CEO in history, holding a report with a chart named the sadness chart, looking at her as if he were trying to decide if this was a prank or a test of patience. She opened her mouth to explain, but her brain went into emergency mode, refusing to come up with anything useful. So she just blurted out, well, if I were a chart, that's what I'd be called too. The office remained dead silent. Ethan pinched the bridge of his nose, as if asking the universe for strength. Why exactly did you name the spreadsheets like this? Alisa swallowed hard. Well, Mr. Fischer, numbers can be so cold, so I gave them personality. Now their charts have feelings. Personality? She nodded enthusiastically. Yes. Look, the sadness chart shows a huge drop in performance, so the name makes total sense. And the bankruptcy table? A tragedy. We need to feel the impact of these numbers to truly understand their story. Ethan blinked. You just described financial reports like a soap opera. Alisa gave a sheepish smile. With the right soundtrack, it would be even better. Ethan wasn't sure if he should laugh or terminate her contract on the spot. Change the names. She nodded so fast, she looked like a trained penguin. Right away, sir. He gave her one last look before walking out of the room, muttering something about how the company kept attracting chaos. As soon as the door closed, the office erupted in whispers. Oh my God, you survived. I thought he was going to fire you on the spot. Seriously, who labels a corporate report the sadness chart? Alisa sighed and collapsed into her chair. Well, at least he didn't throw a stapler at me. I'd call that a win. Over time, because of the spreadsheet chaos, Alisa had to stay late organizing the documents. Let's have some fun with those who only read the comments. Type popcorn in the comments. Only those who made it this far will get it. As she looked around, she realized the office was nearly empty. Only a few lights were still on, and the sound of keyboards echoed in the quiet space. She was exhausted. Okay, Alisa, just finish this and go home. But there was one small problem. She couldn't focus anymore. Her eyes started to get heavy, and that's when she had a brilliant idea. I need a boost. Something to help me stay awake and motivated. And what's the best way to stay awake? Music. Alisa put on her headphones, opened her maximum energy playlist, and hit play. The moment the beat started, she couldn't resist. Without realizing it, she began moving her shoulders to the rhythm, then her arms, and then her legs. Within minutes, Alisa was dancing alone in the middle of the office, spinning around the desk, clapping to the beat, and pretending her stapler was a microphone. She did a dramatic spin and, caught up in the moment, slid across her swivel chair like a rock star in the middle of a concert. That's when she heard a noise, a quiet cough. Alisa froze, still holding the stapler as a microphone. She slowly turned around, and there he was, Ethan Fischer, standing at the door, looking at her with an unreadable expression. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Alisa felt like her soul was leaving her body, catching the first flight to another planet. Maybe if I pretend to be a statue, he'll just walk away. But Ethan didn't walk away. Quite the opposite. He crossed his arms and tilted his head. Well, that was unexpected. She dropped the stapler. I can explain. He raised an eyebrow. I'd love to hear this. Alisa thought fast. Well, studies show that dancing improves productivity. What studies? Oh, lots of them. Respected scientific research published by experts in productive dancing. Ethan couldn't hold back a smile. You just made that up. Yes, but it sounds convincing, doesn't it? He tilted his head, still trying not to laugh. Tell me something, Mark. Is this part of Dax Corp's corporate culture? Oh, absolutely. It's a secret tradition. All employees dance alone when no one's watching. Ethan let out a short, quiet laugh. Alisa noticed it was real. She felt a small sense of pride about that. Ethan sighed and checked his watch. Just finished that report. She gave a playful salute. Yes, sir. Salute. Yes, sir. As he started to leave, he glanced back at her one last time. Oh, and Alisa? She looked at him. That spin in the chair was impressive. Then he walked out. Alisa stood there blinking. Did her CEO just compliment her office dance moves? She looked at the chair. Maybe I should practice that more often. But just to be safe, only when no one is watching. Ethan left the office and walked down the hallway. He still couldn't believe what he had just seen. Alisa dancing, spinning in her chair like she was at her own private concert, holding a stapler as a microphone. He should have been annoyed, but instead, to his surprise, he laughed. That unsettled him. He wasn't the kind of guy who laughed easily. He was a CEO, a serious man, practical and rational. But that intern, she was a charming disaster, and he didn't know what to think about that. Deep down, he knew one thing, that scene wouldn't leave his mind anytime soon, and that was concerning. But for now, he preferred not to think about it. As Alisa settled into her internship, she quickly realized that the office dynamics were more complex than she had anticipated. The whispers about her and Ethan circulated through the department like wildfire, and she could sense the curiosity in her colleagues' glances. They were eager to know more about the intern who had seemingly captured the CEO's attention. Despite the office gossip, Alisa was determined to focus on her work. She spent her days sorting reports and organizing data, trying to prove herself worthy of the position she had been given. Yet, every time Ethan walked into the room, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He was still the same composed CEO, but now she was beginning to see glimpses of a softer side. One afternoon, as Alisa was reviewing some spreadsheets, she noticed Ethan watching her with a thoughtful expression. "What's on your mind?" she asked, glancing up from her work. "I'm just wondering how someone so chaotic can be so efficient at the same time," he replied, a hint of amusement in his eyes. Alisa crossed her arms, playfully pouting. Are you saying I'm a hurricane? Yes, but a hurricane that somehow organizes files in the middle of the destruction, he said, chuckling softly. She laughed, appreciating the compliment hidden within his words. Their conversations were becoming more relaxed, and Alisa found herself enjoying their dynamic. However, the tension in the office was palpable, and the rumors only intensified. During a coffee break, Alisa overheard her colleagues speculating about her relationship with Ethan. Did you see? He called her in again to review the reports, one coworker said, looking over at Alisa. No way. Ethan never takes an interest in anyone like this, another chimed in. Do you think something's going on? Alisa's heart raced. She needed to make it clear that her relationship with Ethan was purely professional. She was here to work, not to fuel gossip. But the more she tried to ignore the rumors, the more they seemed to grow. One day, Melissa approached her with a mischievous smile. So, you and the CEO have been going out together? What? No. Alisa nearly spilled her coffee. Melissa laughed. All right, I believe you. But half the office doesn't. Frustrated, Alisa rolled her eyes. I went to the restaurant by chance, that's all. Melissa raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Sure, and by chance he was waiting for you with a reserved table. Alisa sighed, feeling the weight of the gossip pressing down on her. She needed to focus on her work and not get distracted by what others were saying. Yet, every time she walked past Ethan's office, she noticed him watching her with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. As the days went by, Alisa found herself increasingly drawn to Ethan. Their conversations became more meaningful, and she felt a connection that went beyond the typical boss-intern dynamic. But just when she thought things were progressing, the rumors took a new turn. One afternoon, while Alisa was sorting through documents, Ethan called her into his office. We need to talk, he said, his tone serious. Alisa's stomach dropped. Something wrong? He laced his fingers together, studying her for a moment before speaking. Logan Pierce called me this morning. Alisa blinked, surprised. And what did he want? He asked about you. Her heart raced. About me? He wants to offer you a job at his company. Alisa felt a wave of confusion wash over her. What? But I'm just an intern. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Do you really believe that? She hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Well, yes. He thinks you have potential, Ethan stated firmly. Do you want me to accept the offer? Alisa asked, searching his expression for answers. Ethan's gaze remained fixed on her, as if he were assessing her reaction. I want to know what you want. Sighing, Alisa leaned back in her chair, trying to make sense of everything. I don't know. It all happened so fast. And I don't even trust Logan. Ethan nodded, understanding her hesitation. Then we're on the same page. The conversation left Alisa feeling unsettled. She had never considered leaving Dax Corp, especially now that she was beginning to feel comfortable in her role. But the idea of a new opportunity was enticing, and she couldn't shake the feeling that Logan had ulterior motives. As Alisa returned to her desk, she couldn't help but reflect on her growing relationship with Ethan. The playful banter, the shared moments, and the undeniable tension between them made her heart race. She knew she had to navigate this complicated situation carefully, balancing her ambitions with the feelings that were starting to blossom between them. As Alisa continued her internship at Dax Corp, the challenges she faced only intensified. With the office gossip surrounding her and Ethan growing louder, she found herself constantly under scrutiny. The whispers about their relationship became almost impossible to ignore. Alisa was determined to focus on her work, but the pressure of everyone's eyes on her made it difficult. One day, while reviewing reports in Ethan's office, she noticed him watching her intently. What are you thinking about? She asked, breaking the silence. Ethan leaned back in his chair, considering his words carefully. I'm just trying to figure out how someone like you can manage to be both chaotic and efficient at the same time. Alisa raised an eyebrow, a playful smile creeping onto her face. Are you calling me a hurricane? Exactly, he replied with a smirk. A hurricane that somehow manages to keep everything organized in the middle of the chaos. Their banter made the work environment feel lighter, and Alisa appreciated the way Ethan seemed to genuinely enjoy their interactions. However, the rumors persisted, and Alisa often found herself the subject of speculation among her colleagues. During a coffee break, she overheard two co-workers discussing her. "Did you see how he called her in to review those reports again? There must be something going on. I heard he never takes an interest in anyone like this." "It's definitely more than just work," another chimed in, casting a glance in Alisa's direction. Feeling flustered, Alisa tried to brush off the comments. She was there to do her job, not to become gossip fodder. But the more she attempted to ignore the rumors, the more they seemed to multiply. Melissa approached her one afternoon with a teasing smile. "So, you and the CEO are practically inseparable now, huh?" Alisa nearly choked on her coffee. "What? No, that's ridiculous." Melissa laughed. "Right, sure, but half the office thinks otherwise. I just went to that dinner to check on him because of the engagement rumors," Alisa insisted, frustration bubbling over. "Yeah, right," Melissa replied, her tone playful. "And he just happened to reserve a table for you." Alisa rolled her eyes, feeling overwhelmed by the pressure to clarify her relationship with Ethan. She needed to focus on her work without being distracted by what others thought. Yet, every time she passed Ethan's office, she felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. As the weeks went by, Alisa's feelings for Ethan deepened. Their conversations became more meaningful, and she started to see a different side of him. He was still the serious CEO, but there were moments when he let his guard down, sharing glimpses of his personality beyond work. Then, one day, everything changed. Ethan called her into his office, his expression serious. "Alisa, we need to talk." Her heart raced. "Is something wrong?" He gestured for her to sit down. "Logan Pierce reached out to me this morning." Alisa's stomach dropped. "About what?" "He wants to offer you a job at his company." "Wait, what?" Alisa blurted out, her mind racing. "I'm just an intern." Ethan narrowed his gaze, his tone firm. "Do you really think that?" She hesitated, trying to process the unexpected news. "Well, yes. He believes you have potential," Ethan said, his voice steady. "What do you want me to do?" Alisa asked, her heart pounding. "I want to know what you want," he replied, searching her eyes for answers. Alisa leaned back in her chair, feeling overwhelmed. "I don't know. It all happened so fast, and I don't even trust Logan." Ethan nodded, understanding her concerns. Then we're on the same page. The conversation left Alisa feeling unsettled. She had never considered leaving Dax Corp, especially now that she was beginning to feel at home in her role. Yet the idea of a new opportunity was tempting, and she couldn't shake the feeling that Logan had ulterior motives. As she returned to her desk, Alisa reflected on her growing relationship with Ethan. The playful banter, the moments of shared laughter, and the undeniable chemistry between them made her heart race. She knew she had to navigate this complicated situation carefully, balancing her ambitions with the feelings that were beginning to blossom between them. Every interaction with Ethan felt charged with unspoken words, and Alisa was both excited and terrified by what the future might hold. She was determined to prove herself in her internship while grappling with the emotions that were becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. One evening, after a long day filled with meetings and reports, Alisa found herself in Ethan's office, nervously fidgeting with the papers on her desk. She had been working hard to impress him, but the pressure of the office gossip weighed heavily on her mind. Their relationship had become a topic of speculation among their colleagues, and while she tried to brush it off, she couldn't help but feel the tension building between them. Ethan glanced up from his documents, a thoughtful look on his face. "You seem distracted," he noted, breaking the silence. Alisa sighed, running a hand through her hair. "It's just everything that's been happening lately. The rumors, the whispers. It feels overwhelming." He nodded, his expression sympathetic. "I get it, but you can't let other people's opinions affect your work." "I know," Alisa replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it's hard not to think about it when everyone's watching." "Then let's prove them wrong," Ethan suggested, a hint of determination in his tone. "Focus on your work and what you want to achieve here." Alisa appreciated his encouragement, but deep down, she was still anxious. What if I mess up? What if they're right about us? Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying her intently. "They don't know what we have. And honestly, what we have is none of their business. Alisa felt her heart race at his words. There was something about the way he looked at her that made her feel both excited and scared. Just then, the door swung open, and Melissa popped her head in. "Hey, just wanted to remind you both about the meeting in 10 minutes. "Thanks, Melissa," Ethan replied, his tone shifting back to professional. As Melissa left, Alisa took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "Right, the meeting. I should probably get ready." Ethan stood up, smoothing out his suit. "You'll do great. Just be yourself." She smiled at him, feeling a mixture of confidence and anxiety. "I'll try." The meeting went smoothly, with Alisa presenting her reports and insights. Ethan listened attentively, occasionally nodding in approval. Alisa felt a sense of accomplishment as she spoke, but she could still sense the underlying tension in the room, fueled by the office gossip. After the meeting, as everyone filed out, Ethan pulled Alisa aside. "You handled that really well," he said, his voice low and sincere. "Thanks," Alisa replied, feeling a warm blush creep up her cheeks. "I was just trying to keep my head above water." Ethan chuckled softly. "You did more than that. You impressed everyone." Just then, the atmosphere shifted as someone from the back of the room called out, "Hey, Alisa, when's the wedding?" The comment sent a ripple of laughter through the group, and Alisa felt her face flush with embarrassment. She shot a quick glance at Ethan, who seemed unfazed by the joke. "Very funny," she said, forcing a smile. "Maybe when we're both ready for it." Ethan stepped closer, his gaze steady. "Ignore them. They're just trying to stir the pot." Alisa took a deep breath, trying to shake off the comment. "Right, I know. I just hate feeling like a spectacle." "You're not a spectacle," Ethan reassured her, his voice firm. "You're doing great work here, and that's what matters." His words made her feel better, but as they stood there, an undeniable tension hung in the air. Alisa couldn't help but wonder if there was something more between them, something that extended beyond their professional relationship. Later that week, as Alisa was organizing her desk, she overheard Melissa talking to another colleague. "Did you hear about the dinner Ethan has planned for tomorrow night? Apparently, it's a big deal." Alisa's heart raced. "What dinner?" she whispered to herself, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. Melissa continued, "He's meeting with some important investors, and he's taking someone from the project analysis department. I wonder who it will be." Alisa couldn't shake the feeling that she might be the one chosen to accompany Ethan. The thought sent her mind racing. What if the dinner went well? What if it changed everything between them? The next day, as Alisa prepared for work, she couldn't help but feel a flutter of nerves. Her thoughts were consumed by the dinner and what it could mean for her relationship with Ethan. When she arrived at the office, she found Melissa waiting for her with a knowing smile. "Are you ready for tonight?" Melissa asked, excitement in her voice. "What do you mean?" Alisa replied, trying to play it cool. "Oh, come on. You know he's taking you to that dinner." Alisa's heart skipped a beat. "Wait, really?" Melissa nodded enthusiastically. "Of course. He specifically asked for you." Alisa felt a rush of emotions, excitement, nervousness, and a hint of fear. "I don't know if I'm ready for this." "Just be yourself, Alisa. You'll do great," Melissa encouraged. As the day went on, Alisa's anticipation grew. She spent the afternoon preparing for the dinner, selecting an outfit that felt both professional and stylish. When the clock struck 8, she headed to the restaurant, her heart racing with each step. When she arrived, Ethan was already waiting for her at the entrance, looking sharp in his suit. "You made it," he said, a smile spreading across his face. "Of course. I wouldn't miss it," Alisa replied, feeling a mixture of nerves and excitement. As they walked into the restaurant, Alisa couldn't help but feel out of place among the elegant decor and sophisticated atmosphere. The dim lighting and polished tables made her feel like she was stepping into a world she wasn't quite ready for. Ethan seemed at ease, greeting people with confidence as they made their way to their table. Alisa followed closely, trying to mimic his composure while reminding herself to stay grounded. When they finally sat down, Ethan leaned in slightly. "You look amazing, by the way," he said, his voice sincere. "Thank you." You don't look so bad yourself, Alisa replied, feeling her cheeks flush. The evening started off smoothly, with light conversation and laughter. Alisa found herself relaxing, enjoying Ethan's company more than she had expected. But just as she began to feel comfortable, the waiter brought out the main course, and Alisa noticed Ethan's expression shift. "Are you okay?" she asked, noticing his discomfort. "I'm fine," he replied, but Alisa could see the redness creeping up his neck. "Ethan, you're turning red," she exclaimed, concerned. "I'm allergic to shrimp," he admitted, his voice strained. Alisa's eyes widened. "You ordered something you're allergic to?" "I didn't notice," he exclaimed, clearly frustrated with himself. "You could have died from distraction," Alisa said, panic rising in her chest. Just then the waiter approached. "Sir, your dish contains shrimp." Alisa quickly reached into her bag. "I have antihistamines. Take this before I have to call an ambulance and end up in the headlines as the inexperienced intern who kills the CEO at a fancy restaurant." Ethan took the pill from her, looking relieved. "Thank you." After a few minutes, the redness began to fade, and the tension in the air slightly lifted. They resumed their conversation, but Alisa couldn't shake the feeling that the dinner had already been a disaster in some ways. As they left the restaurant, Ethan sighed. "Well, that was an interesting dinner." "Yes, and I learned a lot," Alisa replied, her tone playful. "Like what?" Ethan asked, raising an eyebrow. "That you really need to pay more attention to your food orders," she teased. He chuckled, looking more relaxed. "And that you're an excellent rescuer of reckless CEOs. Consider it part of my job description." Alisa laughed, feeling the weight of the evening lift. As they parted ways outside her building, Alisa felt a sense of change in the air. The relationship had shifted, and she couldn't help but wonder what the future held for them. The evening had been unexpected, but it had also deepened their connection in ways she hadn't anticipated. With a smile, she said goodnight to Ethan, feeling hopeful about what was to come. As the weeks passed after the dinner, Alisa settled into her rhythm at Dax Corporation. She felt more confident in her role and was enjoying her work, but the whispers about her and Ethan hadn't faded. Instead, they seemed to intensify, especially after their evening together. Alisa could sense the curiosity of her colleagues every time she walked by, and it added a layer of pressure that she couldn't quite shake off. One afternoon, as Alisa was organizing her desk, Melissa approached her with a knowing smile. "So, how was the dinner? Did you two have a good time?" Alisa hesitated, a smile playing on her lips. "It was interesting. A bit chaotic." Melissa raised an eyebrow. "Interesting, huh? You know, everyone is talking about you two." "Yeah, I've noticed," Alisa replied, rolling her eyes. "It's just annoying. Why don't you just embrace it? You're the intern who caught the CEO's eye," Melissa teased, nudging her playfully. Alisa couldn't help but laugh. "I'm just trying to do my job, you know." But deep down, she was beginning to embrace the attention. She enjoyed her conversations with Ethan, and there was a spark between them that was undeniable. Yet, every time she thought about their growing connection, she also felt a twinge of anxiety. Was it all just a passing phase, or was something more serious developing? A few days later, Alisa was called into Ethan's office. As she entered, she noticed he was flipping through some reports, but he looked up with a warm smile that made her heart race. "Hey, Alisa, can you come in for a moment?" "Sure," she replied, closing the door behind her. "I wanted to talk about some of the new projects we're working on," Ethan said, motioning for her to sit. "I think your input could be really valuable." Alisa felt a surge of excitement. "Really? I'd love to help." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "You've been doing great work, and I want to involve you more in the decision-making process. I think you have a unique perspective." "Thank you." "That means a lot," Alisa said, feeling a sense of pride swell within her. As they discussed the projects, Alisa felt more at ease. Ethan valued her opinions, and their professional relationship seemed to deepen with each conversation. Yet, the moment was interrupted when a colleague knocked on the door and poked their head in. "Hey, Ethan, ready for the meeting?" "Yeah, I'll be right there," he replied, then turned back to Alisa. "We'll continue this later?" "Of course," she said, a hint of disappointment in her voice as they wrapped up their conversation. As Alisa walked back to her desk, she couldn't shake the feeling that their relationship was evolving. Ethan was more relaxed around her, and she found herself looking forward to their discussions. But with every passing day, the gossip continued to swirl, and Alisa felt the pressure mounting. One afternoon, while Alisa was working on a presentation, she overheard a group of colleagues talking about her and Ethan again. "Did you see how he looks at her? It's like he can't take his eyes off her." "I heard they're practically inseparable," another added. Alisa felt her heart race. She couldn't deny that there was something special between them, but she was also afraid of what everyone else thought. She needed to stay focused on her work. Later that week, Ethan called her into his office again. "Alisa, I want you to come with me to the corporate retreat next month," he said, looking serious. "Really? Are you sure?" she asked, surprised. "Absolutely. I think it'll be a great opportunity for you to network and gain some experience," he replied, his eyes meeting hers. Alisa's heart soared. "I'd love to. Thank you for thinking of me." Ethan smiled, a glimmer of something deeper in his gaze. "I believe in you, Alisa. You're going to do great things here." As she left his office, Alisa felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The corporate retreat would be a chance for her to shine, but it also meant more eyes would be on her and Ethan. She couldn't help but wonder how their relationship would be perceived in such a setting. In the days leading up to the retreat, Alisa threw herself into her work, determined to impress not only Ethan, but also the other executives attending. She prepared thoroughly for her presentation, wanting to show that she was more than just the intern who spilled coffee on reports. She was ready to prove herself. Finally, the day of the retreat arrived. Alisa arrived early, dressed in a smart but stylish outfit that made her feel confident. As she entered the venue, she spotted Ethan across the room, engaged in conversation with a group of colleagues. He looked up and smiled when he saw her, and her heart fluttered at the sight. "Hey, you made it," he said, walking over to her. "Of course. I wouldn't miss it," she replied, her nerves easing as they spoke. As the day progressed, Alisa participated in various activities and workshops, each one helping her to grow more comfortable in her role. Ethan was supportive throughout, providing encouragement and feedback that made her feel valued. During one of the breaks, they found themselves standing outside, enjoying the fresh air. "You did an amazing job today," Ethan said, his tone sincere. "Thanks. I was really nervous," Alisa admitted, looking down at her feet. "You handled it like a pro." "I'm proud of you," he replied, and she could see the genuine admiration in his eyes. The moment felt charged, and Alisa's heart raced as she looked up at him. "I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you." Ethan stepped closer, the air between them thick with unspoken words. "I just want you to know that I see potential in you, not just as an intern, but as someone who could really make a difference here." Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the world around them faded away. Alisa felt an overwhelming urge to bridge the gap between them, to acknowledge the connection that had been growing. But just then, the moment was interrupted by a colleague calling Ethan's name from inside. "Let's get back," he said, breaking the spell. Alisa nodded, though she felt a sense of disappointment as they returned to the group. The day continued with discussions and networking, but Alisa couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had shifted between her and Ethan. As the retreat came to a close, Alisa felt a sense of accomplishment. She had proven herself, and she could feel Ethan's support behind her. Yet, she also knew that the path ahead wouldn't be easy. The rumors, the expectations, and the complicated emotions between her and Ethan would continue to challenge her. But for now, she felt empowered and ready to embrace whatever came next, determined to navigate her role at Dax Corp while exploring the connection that had blossomed between them. As Alisa settled back into her routine after the corporate retreat, she felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The bond she had formed with Ethan was undeniable, yet the weight of office gossip still lingered in the air. Everyone seemed to be watching, waiting for the next chapter in their story to unfold. One evening, as Alisa was wrapping up her work, she received a text from Ethan. "Can we talk? I'd like to discuss something important." Her heart raced at the message. What could it be about? She quickly gathered her things and headed to his office. When she arrived, Ethan was standing by the window, looking out over the city. He turned when he heard her knock, a serious expression on his face. "Thanks for coming." Of course. What's up? Alisa asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Ethan gestured for her to sit down. I wanted to talk about our relationship. Alisa's heart skipped a beat. Our relationship? Yes, he replied, running a hand through his hair as he took a seat across from her. I know there's been a lot of speculation in the office, and I want to address it. Alisa felt a knot form in her stomach. Okay. I value our professional relationship, but I also can't ignore the connection we have, Ethan continued, his eyes locking onto hers. I want to be honest with you about my feelings. Alisa's breath caught in her throat. Feelings? Yes, he said, his tone softening. I've developed feelings for you, Alisa, more than just a mentor or a colleague. Her heart raced as she processed his words. I feel the same way, but I didn't know if it was appropriate to say anything. Ethan leaned forward, a hint of a smile on his lips. I think it's more than appropriate. I want to see where this can go, but I also want to make sure we're both comfortable with the situation. I agree, Alisa replied, her voice steady. I want to explore this, but I'm worried about how it will affect our work and what others will think. Ethan nodded, understanding her concerns. I've thought about that too. I want to be respectful of our positions, but I also don't want to hide what we have. Alisa felt a mix of relief and excitement. I don't want to hide either. I just want to make sure we're both on the same page. Let's take it slow, Ethan suggested. We can keep things professional at work and see how it develops outside of the office. I'd like that, Alisa said, smiling at her. As they spoke, the tension that had been building between them began to dissipate. Alisa felt a newfound sense of clarity about their relationship, and it excited her. They discussed their boundaries and how to navigate their feelings while maintaining professionalism in the office. When Alisa finally left Ethan's office that evening, she felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. She couldn't help but smile as she walked through the hallways. There was a sense of hope and anticipation for what was to come. In the following weeks, Alisa and Ethan managed to strike a balance between their personal and professional lives. They shared quiet moments together away from the office, enjoying each other's company without the scrutiny of their colleagues. Yet the gossip didn't completely fade. Alisa noticed the curious glances and whispered conversations when she walked by, but this time she felt empowered. She had Ethan's support, and she was ready to face whatever challenges came their way. One afternoon, as Alisa was reviewing a report in the break room, she overheard two colleagues discussing her. I heard Alisa and Ethan are officially a thing now. Yeah, and they look so happy together, another replied. Alisa couldn't help but smile at their words. She was happy, and she was ready to embrace this new chapter of her life, no matter what others thought. A few weeks later, Alisa discovered she was pregnant. The news left her in shock, and she knew she had to tell Ethan. She wanted to find the right moment, but anxiety gnawed her. How would he react? When she finally gathered the courage to share the news, she decided to do it creatively. She prepared an envelope with a card that read, "Congratulations, you've been promoted to daddy." When Ethan arrived home that evening, Alisa was waiting on the couch, her heart racing. What's this? He asked, taking the envelope from her hands. Just a little surprise, she said, watching as he opened it. His eyes widened as he read the card, and then he looked at her, stunned. Are you serious? Alisa nodded, biting her lip, her emotions bubbling to the surface. Ethan pulled her into a tight embrace, lifting her off the ground. I can't believe it. This is amazing. I didn't believe it either until I checked the test 3 times. She laughed, tears of joy streaming down her face. Ethan held her face in his hands, his eyes shining with happiness. You just made me the happiest man in the world. I can't wait for this new adventure, Alisa replied, feeling whole in a way she never imagined possible. As they stood together, wrapped in each other's arms, Alisa knew that their chaotic journey had led them to this moment. They were ready to embrace the future together, with all its challenges and joys, knowing they would face everything hand in hand.